As we mentioned at the top of this newscast, President Obama outlines his proposals to help stem gun violence in this country.
Many pro-gun advocates and lawmakers have already said they're against the president's ban on assault weapons, and many point to the Second Amendment, the right to bear arms. Professor Don Downs studies constitutional law and criminal law, civil liberties, among many other things at the UW. Thanks for being with us today.
Good to see you.
My pleasure.
Let's talk about that, what the president proposes. Does that violate the Second Amendment?
Well, it depends. He's proposed a lot. And the most dramatic proposals are, the ban on high-grade military-style assault weapons. And he wants to limit the amount of ammunition you can have in magazines so you can repeat firing less often. From a constitutional perspective, there's a fair amount of leeway that the courts have left for regulations. In 2008, 2010, the Supreme Court reaffirmed the right for individuals, not just the militia, to bear arms. And that is a Second Amendment right. I believe in that right. I'm a strong advocate of it. But the question is how far you can go, what can you own in relation to public safety. And the courts left a fair amount of wiggle room for regulations. Certain kinds of things maybe the government could ban, but right now that's unclear.
Well, it seems like there's two forks in this debate. There's the constitutionality of the Second Amendment, and then there's the wisdom of the policy, the politics.
Exactly. And, something could be constitutional and still be bad law. And I think a lot of people in this debate on the pro-gun rights side are making that claim. We had a ban on assault weapons, military-type assault weapons from 1994 until around 2004, and that really didn't raise any clear constitutional problem. The question is whether or not you should ban those for all people, including those that are, responsible gun owners. Having more regulations, making it more difficult to own one, could be fine. But an outright ban might be another thing. So really the devil's going to be at the details of all these issues.
But the precedent is there for that kind of legislation.
Yes.
And this is going to be a long battle, don't you think?
Oh, I think so. And it's going to be really heated. So you have a lot of people really upset about what's happened in recent years, especially out in Connecticut. And of course you have people that are concerned about the Second Amendment. And this sort of ties into the larger kind of culture war in America. The president back in 2008 made that disparaging comment about people that own their guns and read their Bible or whatever it was he said. I forget exactly. So that's sort of fueling this. A lot of people are concerned that this is really the camel's nose in the door of a broader agenda. But if they draw the line in a reasonable kind of way, it'll probably pass constitutional muster. Depends what they do. It all boils down to the facts. The devil's in the details here.
You couldn't isolate a certain number of guns and then make an amendment to amend the Second Amendment?
You could have an amendment to amend any part of the Constitution, but it's only happened, it hasn't happened very often in our history. And I can't believe that you could get an amendment limiting gun rights in this country. You have to have 3/4 of the states pass it, 2/3 of each House pass the amendment. You go to the states, you have to have 75% of the states pass it. That's not going to happen. Obama's not going to get everything he wants here either.
But he's going to get some, don't you think?
I think he'll get something. It's really hard to tell right now. He's not going to get it all. Republicans are really not on board. And there are a lot of Democrats in more centrist states or more right-leaning states, like in Pennsylvania, for example, that so far have been really quiet about this. They don't want to get burned like they were back in 1994. When Clinton passed some gun control legislation, and a lot of Democrats were driven out of Congress in that revolution they had, the Gingrich Revolution.
It's going to be interesting to watch.
Topic,
oh, absolutely.
Don, good to see you. Thanks for coming in tonight.